Everyone who's joining us today. So most of you are already used to these facilitation lounges that we are organizing in our region, Europe and Middle East, but of course they are open to all members and also to the overall community of facilitators or people who are interested in these topics. So we pretty much would like to welcome you all and thank Rosanna for being with us today. And we hope and we are looking forward to the session where I can move from a 1 at least to a 2. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be a fun session. So this is not a webinar, which means that you're not just going to hear me talk, and it's going to be an interactive session. My name is Rosanna von Sacken. I'm based in Metro Vancouver in Canada, and I have been an IAF member for 10 years, and I'm a CPF. Today, we're going to be focusing on drawing. And I'm going to give you some tips. You're going to follow along and or ask me questions anytime. And so for those of you that have just joined us, I welcome you to rename yourself and put a number in front of your name from 1 to 10. 1 meaning I can only draw stick people. 10, I consider myself an artist. So I am probably considering myself somewhere around a 7. So I'm not an artist. I don't have any artist background. I'm not a graphic designer, none of those. Everything was learned. Everything is learnable. That's the key thing. And so we're going to get going. And some of the slides that you're seeing, I actually did in Keynote. For those of you that use Keynote, and I'm assuming PowerPoint has the same similar features as well, where you can actually draw on your slides, which I love because you can add a lot more artistic elements to your slides rather than just text and pictures and or clip art. So those are the things that I like about Keynote, and there's a lot of things you can do. So to start off with, first impression. And one of the things that I always say to people is that if you can write, let me rephrase that, if you can print, you can impress people just by doing a welcome sign for your sessions, even if it is on a flip chart or on a digital version of it, however you want to do it. This is just printing, and printing big and also a little bit of drawing, and my head is in the way, and add a little bit of flair in your flip chart. So quite often what I do is I would say, welcome to whatever the session is, and make it interesting. So similar to this slide here, all I did was print and draw a pencil. So it was really, really simple. So this is the first impression that you give people when you're welcoming folks into your session in person. And if online, you can do something like this. Yeah, easy? Give me a thumbs up. Awesome. I want to say thank you, Celeste and Rena, who are both helping me out because I don't see everyone when I'm showing my screen. So they're going to be helping me to be my second and third pair of eyes, as well as on the chat. So next thing, drawing is really learnable and is really about putting simple shapes together. If you can draw a triangle, a rectangle, a square, a circle, oval, draw a line, draw a dot, you can combine those things and make drawings. It's really that simple. So basic shapes, combining them, putting colors to them, and as I've shown in this particular slide, all the drawings on the right is actually a combination of all the basic shapes on the left. Yeah, okay. So first exercise, if you can find yourself a sticky note, I would like to ask you to draw a heart. Everybody knows how to draw a heart, right? So draw a heart on a sticky note, and if you wish, you can even color it with red if you like. So please take a moment to do that. Take a sticky note. And you're going to draw a heart on a sticky note. Okay, we're going to be using this sticky note multiple times. If you're done, hold it in front of the camera so we can see. Yeah. So this is to give yourself some love, and don't be so hard on yourself. And if you like ideas that are showing up, thank you so much. If you like the ideas throughout the session, you're welcome to wave the heart in front of the camera to show people love and to show yourself love. Okay, so you've done your first drawing. Easy. So I will be talking to some of these elements on the basic shapes, and you will be drawing some along with me. If you have anything specific that you want to learn how to draw, either put it in the chat or unmute yourself and let me know. And by the way, I welcome questions along the way, so don't wait till the end. If you have any questions, either raise your blue hand on Zoom or unmute yourself or type it in the chat. And if you're gonna type a question in the chat, I invite you to put three question marks in front of your question. So start with 3 question mark and then your question so that Rena can quickly scan the chat and find the questions. Okay with that? Clear? All right. All right. So find a piece of paper if you're using paper and pen or markers. If you're using iPad, open up your iPad. What I'm going to ask you to do is, just give me a second. I'm going to stop sharing here so you can see my screen. And I'm going to go low tech. Give me a second. What I'm going to invite you to do is take a pen and a paper or a marker. And what I invite you to do is draw 3 squiggles. So any kind of squiggles like this. Just a little bit. Why is it so fussy? There we go. Okay, so once you've done the squiggles, if you have a different color, great. If you don't, that's fine as well. I'm going to invite you to choose any of the basic shapes, add to these squiggles, and make them into birds. So for example, I might make my squiggle here, put an eye here, put a triangle here, maybe a few triangles here for the tail, put some lines in here. I've just done my first squiggle bird. Okay, now you can use different shapes and add different shapes to it if you wish. And because they're all different positions, you can make it to whatever you like. So take a few minutes, do your 3 squiggle birds, and then we're going to share it with each other. All right.
Could you move the paper a little bit? Thank you.
There we are. Okay, when you're done, please hold it up to the camera so that we can all see your squiggle birds. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Oh, look at those fancy ones. Wow, nice, nice. Oh, I like the crown. Never thought of adding the crown. Ah, thank you. So awesome. Thank you so much. Awesome. I love all the ideas. Really, really good. Yay. Okay. So I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to go back and share my screen again. That takes me a minute. Thank you. It's waiting to be shown. Oh, it starts all over again. We've done the squiggle birds. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to invite you to think about is your own writing. If you do write as in cursive, I would ask you to consider printing instead of writing, because writing is really hard to for people to for the brain to process. Is much easier for people to see printing rather than writing. You can combine capital letters and small letters. I tend to do it in all caps because it writes faster for me when I'm doing things live. I tend to do all caps, and when you are a facilitator, you know that you need to write big or print big so that people can see it. And you can use different lettering styles to add flair to your printing. So if you don't print straight, that's perfectly okay. Just make it look purposeful. So for example, on this particular slide, you will see that I wrote several words fairly big, and they're not straight. I intentionally made it that way because I can't write straight most of the time. So I make it go up and down a little bit. As long as the midline is the same for all the letters, you're totally fine. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about printing, and you can add a little bit to it. So there are different lettering styles, and I'm going to focus on some of these. And block letters are great for titles. And if you can't do block letters, you can make your letters really big and then double line it. So just double line part of the letter, that would make it look bolder. And most of you probably already are familiar with serif and sans serif. Serif means there's a little tick at the end of the letters. Like lettering style, the word lettering here are serif. The letters here are serif. Whereas thick down, thin up, that's sans serif. It doesn't have those little ticks in it. So those are different styles of lettering that you can jazz up your own printing and make it interesting. So I'm going to invite you to open up your mic if you wish. And if you have any questions, ideas, and requests, I will take those. So I'm going to give you a minute. And I'm going to switch camera.
Rosanna, are you going to talk about color as well? Yeah. Am I jumping ahead? Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to do lettering first. And so if you have a piece of paper, we can practice doing some of those lettering, okay? So if you normally write in cursive, try printing everything if you can, okay? When you're writing big, you gotta allow spaces in between letters. So if I say, you can see everything, okay. Print. Okay, the reason why I have a lot of space in between the letters is that if I want to make it something else, I have space. So for example, I can double line the first word, print, and make it a little bit fancier just by adding a line to some of the verticals and adding a serif to some of the top and bottom of the letters. Usually the double line is on the vertical or on the diagonal, okay? So print already looks different, just simply because I added an extra line to the vertical, right? And I can also add a little bit more here if I want. Now, if you wrote really tight, it's not that you can't do it. It's just that if you use the same thickness pen, it's going to look really smudgy, right? So if I want to do a double line here, it's going to look really, really tight. And I tend to be lucky at this one. I can still do it. But sometimes you may not. Okay. So let's make the word big into a block letter. Block lettering basically means that you can fill it in with some other colors. Awesome. So I'm just also looking at your self-described ability in terms of how well you can draw or how well you think you can draw. And I see some 8s, some 1s and 2s, which is totally okay. And hopefully by the end of today, you'll be at least 1 number higher. So because I have a lot of space in between here in terms of the word big, I could put a little circle in between the letters. You can make it bigger or smaller. You can still see the letters. Now, if you have time, you can color it in, right? So this is fairly basic lettering. And if you really want to be fancy, and depending on the type of pens that you use, you can make lettering look good by using a brush pen. So I don't know if you're familiar with Norland products. That's the products that I use most of the time. And they have brush nips, and they're great for brush lettering, okay? However, I find that the brush tips are very soft. So that means that you want to write really big with them. And if you're not familiar with them, it may be a little bit harder to control. All right. So for brush lettering, generally speaking, you have downstrokes that are thick and upstrokes that are thin. So this is, if you do use brushes, brush pens, brush markers, these are good things to practice with, right? So you can do print letters where the vertical, the downstroke is always thick. And the upstroke is always thin. Neuland, I'll type that into the chat. And they are based in Germany. And the good thing about them is they're refillable and they're water-based, so they don't stink, and they're very environmentally friendly. All right. Any comments, questions, or feedback regarding lettering? So some of you that give yourself, thank you. Thank you for the love. Some of you that gave yourself 5 or higher, what can I help you with in terms of lettering? If you're familiar with this already, I see Anna is an 8. 14, Jan. 5, Daniela. Any comments, feedback, or questions? Just unmute yourself. What is hard or difficult about lettering?
Hi, from Romania. Thank you so much. I'm not a very big fan of watercolors, so I'm usually a marker kind of girl.
Yeah.
But I love when I'm watching somebody using them, so I can watch you writing down for 4 hours. So for me, it's perfect what you do so far. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So lettering, sometimes depending on the pen or marker that you use, and there are different kinds of nibs, right? So if you're doing small, you may be using a pen that looked like on paper, you may be using something like this, which is a very, very fine nib. These are also from Neuland, but you can also get microns and Faber-Castell and things like that, and you can do it on small scale. On a notebook, something similar to, let me find you some examples here. So these are really, really small, right? These are just page size kind of notebook, right? So very fine lettering. So that's one kind of pen. Neuland or other pen makers also produce these kinds of markers that are round nib. And for paper size, they are perfect. So I can write it fairly thick and you can still see it on my page, right? So the round nib basically gives you a very even stroke everywhere. Now, you may also have, I don't know what kind of pens you use, and this is a parallel pen, and they write very differently. It's like a calligraphy kind of pen, right? They're small, of course, on paper only, right? But they're very fine, and depending on the etch and how you use it, how you hold the pen, where you write, it would give you the thick and thin automatically. Now, if you use Neuland markers, these are called the thick ones, and I love these because they can make very thick strokes easily. On flip chart especially, right? So if I want to write the word welcome, whoops, this is almost dry. Let me give you another.
May I add something at this point, Rosanna?
Yes, please.
Okay, Neuland pens are refillable, so you can get the inks from Neuland and refill your pens whenever they're dry, like the red one before.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So these Neuland markers, almost all of them are refillable. So at the end, there's a little hole here, and you can get ink for it, and you can refill these markers. So you don't have to throw them out. So not only are they refillable, if you get a nib that you use a lot and they get all smudgy, you can also replace the nib. So I can change this marker with a new nib, and it'll be fresh. Yeah. So this is the kind of strokes that I would use on a flip chart to make the welcome sign, because there's nice and thick. I don't have to go over it multiple times in order to make it look thicker, right? So these are gorgeous pens. And there's also this size. I just have white ink in here, but so this is a little bit wider still than this one. So they are great on flip charts, not on flip charts, on big chart paper, like 8 foot long, 4 foot long kind of paper. And they make beautiful strokes. I don't have one handy here. And they also, Neuland also have these kind of markers. So these are the 3 different sizes that you can get from Neuland. So this is the one that I demonstrate in this yellow. This is actually acrylic paint in this marker, and this one is even wider, right? This is all 1 inch wide. So depending on the paper, the size that you're using, you can use different tools for different purposes. Okay, questions or comments, or do you want me to do some more writing?
I have a question.
Yeah. Yes, please. Thank you, Rena. Go ahead, Dawn.
Oh, I thought I talked over somebody, sorry. So when I'm prepping for a session, I can take my time and be really neat. And then in the middle of the session, it gets crazy busy and all my neatness falls out the window. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so when I'm facilitating, I print, and my printing is not going to be as neat as my pre-done work before a session. So if we have time at the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about creating your own visual template. So all you have to do when you're facilitating is fill in the blank. You can also use visual templates as worksheets for your participants. And you can also use them as a final summary of whatever you're talking about. So I'm going to address that a little bit at the end. So remind me if I forget, depending on how much time we have. So you're totally right. So when I write, I print because it's faster, but this is my regular printing. It's not straight. You'll see that this is not straight. This is my comfort size, which means that when I write big, I use the marker to make it big rather than trying to write big, because when you write big, you really have to slow down quite a bit more. Whereas if I use a thicker marker or thicker pen, it would automatically help me by making it look bigger. I don't have to spend as much effort and concentration on writing, right? So my regular printing is not compromised depending on the tool that I'm using. So if I want to write big using this small marker on a flip chart, it's going to take me multiple strokes to make it look big and neat. It takes too much time. So when I am doing it live, I usually pay attention to how big do I need to write, and can I use a different tool to help me with it, rather than trying to force a small tool for big lettering. Does that make sense, Dawn? Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so choose the right tool for the right purpose. So if you know you're going to be writing on flip chart for example, use the right marker. The size that I use are this kind of marker when I'm writing on the flip chart, and also the thick one, the big one. Okay, so these are the tools that I would use on a flip chart. One for big titles, and this is for regular writing. Make sense? And if you're using paper, then you might be using something like this. Yeah? Rena, did I see that you have a question? No? Okay. Any other comments, questions, or feedback? So maybe just type in the chat real quick. What would you normally write on in this virtual environment that we're in right now? So obviously in person, you have the choice of whiteboard, flip charts, right? And big chart paper and so on and so forth. But now that we're doing everything virtually, what medium would you be using for writing and sharing things with your participants? Just type it in the chat. Google board, Jamboard, whiteboards. Whiteboard as in Zoom whiteboard? Is that what I'm understanding? Microsoft whiteboard? Yeah.
Yes, Teams or Zoom.
Okay. And Miro? Yeah. Jamboard? Okay. So one of the things that I try to do when we are doing things virtually is that there are things that you have absolutely no control of. You don't know what people are using at their end. We don't know how savvy they are on the computer and with technology. You don't know what their internet bandwidth is. And you don't know whether they're using a PC or a Mac. Those are things that you have absolutely no control of, which means that I try not to use really fancy tools because, so for example, Miro Miro are fantastic tools for the facilitators. But if you're facilitating a group of 200 and you have 200 people using Miro or Miro, it's a mess, especially if they don't know how to use it. Especially if you don't have the bandwidth or they don't have the bandwidth. And it looks different. The features may look different on different kinds of computers. So I really try to go with the basic as much as possible so that I'm not complicating my process and my purpose by using fancy tools. So probably, I've got to turn on my pen. On doing things digitally, I might use Procreate for drawing, and I might use pen and paper, and I try to pre-do as many things as possible so that I'm not challenging myself by giving myself extra stress, right? Does anybody use Procreate?
I do.
Yeah?
All the time. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I do my paintings, I do my facilitating with it.
Yeah, so I do a lot of stuff on Procreate, particularly pre-drawings. All the drawings that I do are done on Procreate, and then I export it out. I love Procreate. And so it's an extra tool that facilitators can use. For those of you that are not familiar, this is an app that you can buy for your it's only for iPads. Okay. So Procreate, and they just have a very recent update, which, oh my God, all those fancy features. Can't wait to play with them. And for some of you that you do use it, you know what it's like. So I won't talk too much about Procreate because we're talking about drawing rather than tools today, but I welcome the questions as we move along. Good with that? Okay. Actually, I'm going to go here. It's a little bit faster rather than getting it to preload every time. So we talked about drawings, it's not lettering so far, and wanted to ask you to practice your lettering. So write something on your paper so that you can share it with the rest of the group, and write the words draw on demand.
And Goli has a question. She's asking for any suggestions for Android users.
For what, Android?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have an Android thing, so I can't tell you about Androids. Yeah, I don't know. I think Procreate only works for the iPad Pro, as far as I know. There are other drawing apps that you can find on different type of device, and you'll have to go to your apps and look for it. But I find that all basic drawings are great as long as you have a pen, like an Apple Pencil, a stylus of some kind, because it makes drawing so much easier rather than trying to draw with a mouse, right? So if you could write the word draw on demand, on your paper. And then show it with to everyone on the, so this is done on Procreate, and I have different brushes available to me. It makes it really easy. So I'm gonna stop sharing this particular slide. And if you could hold up your draw on demand. Okay, so that's your first go. For those of you that haven't done a block letter or thick or double line, now try to do a double line or block letter on your existing drawing. So just add to it. Just add to it. Nice. Yes, yes. Awesome. So when you're done, hold it up so I can see. Fantastic, fantastic. Oh, I like the block letters. So comes through so easily. Even when you do the letters small, I can see it because you made it bigger. Yeah. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Anybody else want to show the letters? Thank you so much. So I'm going to share my screen. Thank you. Awesome. Soha and Dawn. Nice. Okay. That's great. So one thing I want to talk about when you're drawing on a flip chart or a large piece of paper or even on a page size, some of the things that I'd like you to pay attention to is that even if you only do printing with your work, but you add some containers around the words, such as a box, such as a ribbon, such as a word cloud, such as a speech bubble or an arrow, different kinds of lines, using different colors to pop your lettering, it would already help. So if I give you a page of writing, if I didn't have these containers and speech bubbles and arrows and colors on here, how can I jazz things up? By grouping them and by using things to pop, to make them pop. So for example, in this slide, what I've shown here is that I've used colors in the background, in the cloud and in the speech bubble to make it pop. In the down arrow here, I also use colors to make it pop, yeah? So if I had a whole bunch of bullet points about something that I recorded and is about a particular topic, I can put the heading, in this case, I use the word containers, and then put a box around it or some shape, basic shape around it. It clusters the information already right away, right? So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about containers and what containers might look like and what they could, how you could draw some of those containers, or if you have any questions regarding how do you draw this kind of containers or that kind of containers, tell me, okay? And I will draw them with you. So for example, you might say, how do I draw a ribbon? And we'll do it together. So I'm gonna put my iPad away because I want to go back to the basics. And so containers can be any basic shape that we just talked about, or it could be a speech bubble, and speech bubbles can come in different sizes and shapes, right? So the typical speech bubbles, I'm going to do speech bubbles here. See, you can see that when I write, my printing is not all that fancy, right? When I do quick. So a speech bubble could be just a partial oval or circle with a little tail. It could be a rectangle or a rounded corner rectangle with a little tail. It could be a cloud shape with a little tail. So these are all speech bubbles of different sizes and shapes. So for those of you that are a little bit more advanced, thank you. For those of you that are a little bit more advanced and you already know how to do this, how do you do your speech bubbles to make it, to jazz it up? Anyone?
I use colors.
Yeah.
To put it up, and also I use lines like they are moving in order to make it how should I say it, to make it more alive.
Okay, so when you're drawing on paper, doing colors is going to take you time, right? So it's a lot more work doing it on paper to color something than if you're doing it digitally, of course. And by the way, it doesn't have to be inside the line. It looks just fine, even if you do it outside the lines. And, right? It looks fine. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about it being perfect. It looks okay, because from far away, it doesn't matter.
Rosanna, what do you think of using, I used to do marker and then I would color in with like a pencil crayon.
Yeah, that takes so much work.
Yeah,
So,
like if it's a prep like ahead of time,
yeah,
I'll do that.
Yeah, so of course you can use anything for filling in the colors. You can use watercolor, you can use pencils, you can use chalk. They all, like if I do big area, I use chalk in big charts, because chalk can fill in really, really quickly. So I'm gonna grab a chalk pad to show you.
I like that idea too.
So these are called pan pastel, and they come in all kinds of colors, and it's like a powder, a cake of powder for makeup. It's the same sort of idea. And what I do is I usually just grab a paper towel or a Kleenex. They're messy, because they're powder. It's very messy. So what I do is I just pick up some color here, and the good beauty of this pan pastel or any chalk pastel is that you can color really quick on huge areas. So you can very quickly, and it's got this beautiful, vibrant color on it. And the red and the blue, they're just gorgeous. Okay, so you can do huge areas with pan pastel if you have to color it in. Okay. Questions so far about coloring? So I tend to use lighter colors for background and for color fills, and use dark colors for text. So one thing about pan pastel is that I don't put it on until near the end, because otherwise the surface becomes chalky, and when you write on it with a marker, it'll feel funny. So I usually do the pan pastel last, because they're very messy and you can do it on big areas. Yeah. Okay. So I love pan pastel. The only challenge that I have with pan pastel is that if I have to take a picture of what I've just done, the yellow, and then I want to digitize it, it's not going to show up and it'll look patchy. So that's the only thing I don't like about pan pastel, is when you convert it from an analog drawing to a digital drawing. It's gonna look very patchy and it doesn't look consistent, okay? And you would almost have to make it really, really dark in order for the camera to pick it up. Some people say we shouldn't use more than 3 colors. What do you think? Yes. So there's a difference between using a lot of colors versus using colors a lot. Yeah. So when I first started this, I used a lot of colors because I thought, oh, colors pop things out and make it look good and so on. Now I am actually converted, and yes, I try to use minimal number of colors, especially if you are doing small scale. Pick your color palette so that it's not so overwhelming. Colors are great, but it could be, it could overstimulate the mind, and the mind wouldn't know where to look. Okay, a good rule is, yeah, choose 3 colors that you like to use, and that makes sense for you. Sometimes may be dictated by the client's logo, for example. They may have a color palette that you have to use or they want you to use. Then I tend to pick that, use their colors in order to and minimize it to about 3 or 4. Yeah. Good question.
Thank you.
So any other thoughts, ideas, questions about speech bubbles? Oh, one other thing. Write first before you put the bubble around it. because if you do the bubble first and then you have too much text and it doesn't fit, it'll look weird, right? So the idea is to write first, whatever you're writing, and then decide how to create the bubbles. So it's okay to have overlapping bubbles like this. So write first before drawing a container around it. And if that container is a speech bubble, then go for it, okay? What other types of containers can you use? Ribbon, somebody's asking about ribbon. Yes, we can draw ribbons. Ribbons are actually very easy. So ribbons is the most straightforward one is a rectangle. Start with a rectangle, okay? Then do a C in the back. And basically do a parallel line with a V, an open V to the side. There's your ribbon. Just draw a vertical line in the back and make a shadow in the corner. So that's one way of doing a ribbon. Okay. The next fancy ribbon we're going to do is to make it curve. So we're going to curve it this way. The trick is to make sure that these lines are parallel, is the same width. So if you do a ribbon and it looks like this, it's not going to look good. So you want to make sure that these two lines are parallel and it's the same width in between. The space in between is the same, okay? So we curve the ribbon this time. You draw a vertical line connecting the end. You can have the fold of the ribbon on the top or on the bottom. So this time I'm going to do one on the bottom and one on the top. So a little C here and a backward C here. I draw a vertical line to connect the corners and color it in to make a shadow. Same idea. Now, except this time, the N is going to be in the same shape as your main part of your ribbon. So now you have a curved ribbon. So your challenge is flip the ribbon and curve it the other way. Curve it this way and try it yourself and then hold it up to the camera. Okay, let's take a look. Hold it up. Yes. Yes. Yep. Thank you. And by the way, thank you, Anna. Can you hold up yours for a minute? So the ends don't have to be a V shape. It could be just a straight line like what Anna is showing. Okay. So that's a variation of the ribbon. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Aria, can you hold it up closer to the camera? Thank you. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Nice. Okay, one last challenge for the ribbon and then we're moving on. Nice. So look how beautiful, beautiful. So we're gonna do a ribbon that have multiple folds, which means that I'm gonna do 2 parallel lines this way, 2 parallel lines this way, and 2 parallel lines this way. Okay. Then you're going to join it up. And then you're going to do the C's at the end to make the end of the ribbon. you now have multiple ribbons that looks like it's folded. Yeah. And you see that I made a boo-boo here. This end of the line was not exactly parallel, and that's why it looks funny. Love your cup, Anna. Okay, questions about ribbons? Comments? Nice, nice, nice. Beautiful. Okay. I want to talk a little bit more on this particular slide. When you are capturing your participants' contribution, typically you would have a subject title, right? Whatever the heading is. You may or may not have a subheading, and then you have the text associated with whatever you're capturing. So pay attention to the hierarchy of the content. Usually if there's a topic, I make the words or the printing a little bit bigger to show that it's a heading, or I may use a different color to show that is the topic heading. And then I use black usually for the text, for the bullet points and so on and so forth. So immediately when people look at the right-hand side here, they know that this is the topic, maybe there's a subheading, and then there's a text, there's text, smaller text associated with it. What happened is that when you do this, it shows the flow and the direction of what people should be reading. Yeah, I use arrows a lot. I use connecting lines a lot to show which direction things are connected to, and also how people should be reading on the chart. We've kind of touched on colors already. I usually use background colors to make things pop and judiciously so that it's not overwhelming. And again, you'll have to choose the colors that you think is good for you. In this particular slides, I basically only use 3 colors, blue, green, and yellow. Yeah. So think about things that are associated with your type of work that you do. What are some things that that you come across all the time? So we're going to be doing a graphic jam here by drawing things together. The easiest thing to draw are actually things, literal things. So draw a book, draw a computer. Those are things. The next harder thing to do are things that are a little bit more abstract. So like concepts, like environments, those are harder to draw. And the hardest of all are metaphors, because you kind of have to come up with the whole big picture of the metaphor in order to draw it. So what I've prepared next is to draw together on a bunch of stuff. We'll start off with the easy, and we're going to draw things together. Okay, so some of you may already be able to do this. Some of you may not be as comfortable. So we're going to draw a few things. And if you have specific things that you would like us to draw together on, please put it in the chat. Rena's going to keep an eye on there, and or you can verbalize it and let me know what you would like to draw together. A tree with roots. Okay, so let's try that first. How do you draw a tree? So for those that can only use, those of you that says, I can only draw stick people, guess what? You can draw a tree by a straight line and a circular shape with more lines. That's a tree. Make it fancier? Sure. To draw 2 lines, make a V at the top, and maybe you can draw a different shape. Oops, can't see it. Okay. So the shape of the tree will determine what people associate the tree with. So for example, I may do the trunk like this, and if I do this, people are going to associate this tree with a Christmas tree, right? So it depends on how complicated you want the tree to look and what purpose you're using the tree for. If I'm using trees as a background, then I'm probably going to go with the simple shapes. But if I'm going to use a tree with roots as a metaphor, then I probably would make it a little bit more complicated in order to allow space to write on if I were using a tree as a metaphor. So let me redo that. And I'm going to turn this paper around so I can make it taller. Might draw a knot in there. So in order to draw the roots, there needs to be a ground, right? So the roots might indicate something. So the roots are actually basically the tree branches in reverse. And you might draw them a little bit more squiggly, depending on how fancy you want to be. And the tree might have big leaves. So this is a cloud shape for a tree. So this is a basic tree, but if I were using it as a metaphor or a template for people to write things on, for example, you might say, what are the fruit of this process? You might make this into a template. What are the top 3 fruit that you might harvest from this project or this process? And then people can write in here, right? And of course you can color in as you wish when you have time, right? You might say the root is our values because it's the foundation of the tree. What are some of our values? And then you may have spaces for people to write the values on. Right? So you can certainly use a tree with roots as a metaphor. What other meaning could a tree be used for? So literally it's a tree, but it could be growth. It could be development. It could be our top priorities for our organization. It could be, Deanna, do you mean you want me to draw change, or do you want me, or do you mean that the tree could signify change? Unmute yourself. Oh, tree could signify change. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Like I'm thinking, you know, changing colors, the seasons.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can make it as fancy or as simple as you like. For those of you, well, you can Google it or Twitter it and find it. I use 2 trees for a book logo called The Power of Facilitation. And all I did was 2 trees in different colors. And I wrote the word impact on one side. And what was the other side? I can't remember. So let me see if I can find it. I just showed it.
I used it for perspective as well. Like when you're standing at different places, looking at the tree, you see things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
So on one side you may see apples and on the other side you don't.
Right. Yeah. Good. So I'm going to share this with you. So this is something that I drew for a logo for the book called The Power of Facilitation. And all it is 2 trees. And guess what? The trees were lines and ovals. That's all it is. So I did this on Procreate. I used different colors of green, different shades of green. And guess what? I didn't color it within the lines either, right? So it can look very stylized and still look very impactful. Yeah. Questions so far? I would like to draw people, please. Yes. Okay. People are probably one of the harder things to draw. Are there any other requests before I move on to people? People are harder than a lot of different
Stars before
things.
we move on.
Yeah. What was that?
Could we do stars before we move on?
Do a star?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. If you're drawing on paper, a quick way for me to draw a star is in one stroke. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you want to draw a star, like a real star with 5 points, you basically are paying attention to these points here, right? And you're drawing lines in between. If you want to be really quick and you don't have time, this is what I do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 short straight lines. And if you have time to color it, great. If you don't have time, don't worry about it. I'm going to use the leftover of my powder from the pan pastel. You color it in, right? So really simple to make it pop. How else do other people draw stars? Those are the quick and easy way. If you have different ways of, yeah?
I do like an asterisk. I just do like an asterisk.
Yeah. An asterisk could have 8 points, or it could have 6, right? Or it could have 4. So those are really quick star shapes. Yes. Awesome. So there are some requests about how to draw people. How about conflict, success, and progress if relevant? Okay. Conflicts. The way I draw conflicts is probably depending on how serious it is that I might draw a black eye. So basically it's just an oval with a dot in the middle. I might draw a fist coming out. I might draw a foot kicking. And then I'm going to just draw a circle around it, just some lines and some debris. Maybe an asterisk, maybe a little planet. So that looks like conflict to me. Are we having a full-out fight or not, right? So conflict could look like that. How else could conflict look like? Unmute yourself, please, if you wish to join in verbally. Thank you, Avani. Conflict.
I would just even draw a broken heart.
A broken heart, yeah. So a broken heart, so don't connect the heart and just do some zigzag lines on the heart. Another way to draw conflict is that it could be a conversation. And just draw some zigzag lines in there. Okay.
How about a face of some kind?
face like a person in conflict, like a person's expression of conflict? Is that
Yeah,
what you-
yeah.
So there's a difference between conflict and drawing a person's emotion. So when a person is in conflict, what emotions might they be expressing?
Like confusion, frustration, anger.
Okay. Okay, now we're getting into people's faces. Let's try a few more things. So on a fresh piece of paper, if you could draw a few oval or circle shapes, or any shapes actually, we're going to make some faces. So I've got different shapes here. We're going to make some faces. Okay. A person who is angry or frustrated, I'm going to use a triangle for a mouth. I'm going to use sort of 3 lines to make the star eye shape. I'm going to use 2 lines for the eyebrows. That looks like a V. And of course, you can add ears and hair to the person. Okay. Now this person, this face could be anything you want. So if this person was frustrated or in conflict, I might just put down grr next to it to help people get the expression and the emotions. Or if that person is angry, you can put something else associated with the face to make it show like is angry or something else. So this face can be used for a number of things, yeah? You got an angry bird instead? Show me. That's perfect. That's not an angry bird. That's a face that shows like they're upset about something, yeah? Okay, so the trick about drawing faces is actually the eyebrows and the eyes that make the face. So those are the 2 features on the face that tells you what, or that might suggest a certain emotion. And I use different shapes here because it doesn't really matter what that person's shape face look like. It's the eyes and the eyebrows and the mouth that make it, okay? So if this was a lady, because it's got a more pointy face shape, I might draw a face like this. And if I do some eyelashes to it, immediately you can tell it's a lady. Do I need to lower it so you can see better? Okay, so I might draw an arch for the eyebrow for the lady. The nose doesn't really matter. Is this person happy, sad, or whatever? Give me an expression.
Happy.
Excited.
Happy.
Happy, okay. Happy.
Shy.
I'm going to do shy in a moment. Okay, I would probably use a finer pen to help me with the other features because this is quite fat. So I might use a finer pen and draw some lips, and I might color it red to make it look like a lady. If I want her to have fancy hair, I might draw a few more lines for her hair. Okay. Now, if this person was, did somebody say sad? I can actually use the same eye shape, but I would change her eyebrow. And I would probably draw some tears to show that she's sad. So same shape, same lady, different expression. Shy. Ah. What would shy look like? The eyes would look different. Demure. Just a hint of a smile. Okay. Any other emotions you want to draw?
The person who doesn't have a clue.
Oh, okay. I'm going to give you another circle here because I don't have enough space up here. So really, really simple face, right? Fairly neutral, but what's going to make it is actually the shoulders. Shrugging the shoulders. Okay, and I might use a couple of finer lines like that. So this look, right? Shrugging the shoulders, I don't know. Of course, the broader the shape, the bigger, the more masculine it could look. So this person could look like this. Person could have half asleep eyes, basically an oval with a line across it, and the pupil is lower on the lower half. Zoomed out. When in doubt, write the words. So this face could mean different things to different people without some words. So all you have to do is to add some words to connect to the expression. I love how you get your camera shot. Is there a secret? What I'm using is called a document camera, and that's what I'm using. And Rena just spotlighted me. So the document camera I'm using is called IPEVO. And basically an alternative camera for Zoom that focus on whatever you're doing on your tabletop. Okay. So we talked about drawing different things. So if you are able to draw a tree, for example, you could use that as growth. You can use it for change. You could use it for organizational development and things like that. Other things like, for example, if you draw a computer or Wi-Fi towers, that could imply technology. If you're drawing a book, it could mean knowledge. It could mean a report, right? If I'm drawing drinks or beach, or a hat, sunglasses, that could imply relaxation or vacation. So you just need to learn some of the basic drawings for stuff that are related to your work, and you can use it for all kinds of stuff. So for your work, whatever your work is, what are some things that you normally come across that you would like to learn how to draw? You can unmute yourself if you like, so I can see you and hear you.
I do a lot of work around change management, and so just even that, and also like when you're in the pit.
So what are some things that you would like to draw for change management?
So just to show, I think it's probably another conversation because it would be the process of change.
Okay, so for processes, I use lines and arrows a lot because it usually goes from one thing to the next, right? So for example, we might have, let's say, a box. This is where we are. And we might go to the next phase, which could be choices. Choices could be doors. Door number 1, door number 2, door number 3. And after choices, we might have to make a decision. And what might those decisions be? Well, guess what? We're going to create a new policy book. So the arrows shows process and directions, and then the products could be whatever those things are. So right now we're all thinking inside the box. How do we get outside the box? What are the choices do we have? And what are the new products that we might get? And I'm making this up, of course, but it's got to be relevant to what you're doing. Anybody else? Good. Thank you. Strategic, mission, vision, values. Okay. So I really like the tree idea, particularly because the roots are the values and the foundation of an organization. A lot of people use mountains for strategic planning, and I see this a lot in terms of strategic plans. So it could be something like this, vision. And the marks here might be your goals and objectives. And your mission might be a ribbon, something like that. I see this a lot, or variation thereof. And then the clouds are the values. Something like that. So I see that a lot in strategic plan that people use for strategic planning. So these are goals, right? What other metaphor do people use for strategic planning? I will flash a couple of examples of strategic plans that I've done for clients, but I can't show it for very long because I don't have the permission to show it and to share it. So could I ask you, Rena, to stop the recording here for a moment to draw the lighthouse?
I'm
Shalaka?
recording again, by the way. Is that okay?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking a lighthouse could be a metaphor for, you know, vision, mission, values.
Yeah. So to draw a lighthouse, you draw a rectangle. The bottom of the lighthouse. The light coming from the lighthouse. And you might draw some other things in here. So for example, I might draw some vertical lines here. I might draw a couple of brick-like things. And maybe a window here. You might draw a ship or a sailing ship or a boat of some kind. Right? This is a very simple way, quick way of drawing a lighthouse. If there's a brainstorming session for various topic, what would the graphic invitation be? Okay, it's a great segue into a visual template. Do people mind if we go over maybe 5 or 10 minutes?
I was just going to ask the same thing. Is it okay for everyone to proceed for a few more minutes?
Yeah, okay. For those of you that can stay, stay. For those of you that have to go, I totally understand. Okay, so a visual template, let's use this as a visual template. So you have an anchoring image for your visual template. So basically a drawing. And for example, if we're doing a brainstorming around come up with some ideas around what our organizational values might be. You would have some drawings and lots of white space for people to write in. I also always put down the prompt on the visual template. So if the prompt is about, let's say, potential values for the organization, I might say organizational values here. What are the top, 5 values that you think our organization has that you want to see happen? And so you provide them with a space to write, lots of white space, and you give the prompt. So a visual template could be, or should be, no more than, I would say, 2 of 3 prompts. Otherwise, it gets very crowded and very busy, and you need to balance it with white space. And I would always write down the prompts in the template. Now, something like this could be used as a worksheet because you can draw it and get people to print it out and use it as an individual worksheet. I could also make it big and use it as a visual chart where when we have concluded this discussion, I can put the final values on here and that would be your final chart and make it bigger, right? So I use visual templates a lot because when I'm facilitating, I find it hard to draw and listen and focus on the group at the same time and write. So I use templates a lot because I need to focus on my facilitation work, not my drawing. So I need to be able to capture and just fill in the blank. I use visual templates also as worksheets for individual reflection first. And then I would facilitate a conversation. When we come to some conclusion, I would finalize it on the final drawing. Does that make sense, Anastasia?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It absolutely does.
Yeah. And you know what? Even if you don't draw any images on a template, it could be as simple as let's say when I'm a whatever, I feel challenged with 1, 2, 3. This could be a worksheet. Now there is only black and white. I don't have a lot of colors in there. And the way to very quickly separate, so this is all words, right? There's no drawings in here except for a circle and a rectangle. This could be a visual template. Okay. When I'm a facilitator, I feel challenged with drawing live. I feel challenged with capturing feedback contribution accurately. I feel challenged with whatever. I like to work on whatever, right? So people just fill in the blank. You can change 1, 2, 3 into shapes. You can make this into a bullet point, for example. So this could be a visual template. It doesn't have to be fancy. So this session is not meant to make you into an artist, is to help you create some simple visuals that would help you and complement you with your work as a facilitator.
Oh, thank you very much, Rosanna, for this inspiring session. I had so much fun and I've learned a lot, especially the ribbons were perfect for me because I didn't know it was such easy to draw the ribbons. So we thank you a lot for this. Thanks for being here with us.
You're very welcome. Are there any parting feedback or questions? Thank you, Andrew.
Rosanna, I have a question. I mean, a lot of what you shared today was fantastic, and I think it offers a huge opportunity to, maybe also integrate a lot of tactile and sensory elements into virtual facilitation. I know the time is short, but if you could just share a couple of examples or some nuggets that you have, already used to integrate all of this or some elements of it in your virtual facilitation, because that offers a huge window, I think, of opportunity.
So I do a lot of prep work because I know that when I'm in a session, my focus has to be listening, watching, having to flex my process if I need to. My concentration is not on drawing. I cannot draw and do all that at the same time in an in-person kind of an environment. In a virtual environment, it's actually twice as hard because now you don't have the body cue, you don't feel the energy, you don't have some of the clues that you normally would have in an in-person situation, right? So it's actually doubly hard. So for me, most of my design work in terms of visuals are done well before the session actually happens. So because I have to focus on my facilitation work. Now, if you work with a graphic recorder, that's different because their only job then is to listen and capture. For me, when I'm graphic recording live for somebody else, I'm listening, drawing, then it's gone. So I'm not paying attention to the content so much because it's kind of one ear in, one ear out once I've done it. Whereas with a facilitator, you got to think about, are they off track? Is this relevant? Am I doing the right process? Do I have to change my process? Like all of those things are going on as a facilitator, which is totally different than, let's say, a graphic recorder, right? And if you do work with a graphic recorder, I would highly recommend that you work with them to talk about how would you use the artifact afterwards or during the session. And is that, because that would help you with your work as a facilitator as well, right? So things like, if we're using this template, I want to use this in the middle of my session because I want people to come up and talk about stuff. And I might have a final version of this versus their individual worksheets, right? So those are the tips that I could give you in terms of being a facilitator, because facilitator's role is very, very different than drawing and listening. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have time for one quick question. I just wonder if my biggest challenge right now is everything's going online and digital. I know that you mentioned the camera was one of your tips. Is there any other tip that you highly recommend to convert things or just going more digital?
That's a whole different session.
Okay, okay, good. I just thought, yeah.
So, yeah,
that is definitely one of my tools for sure. Yeah. And, you know, the more COVID is happening, the longer it's lasting. I'm finding that I have to really focus on going back to the basics. Miro, Miro, Jamboard, blah, 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 all that other stuff is fantastic. But what I'm finding is that the larger the group, the more unwieldy those tools are. So I'm always going back to the basics because there are so many things that you can control. The stuff that I talked about earlier on in terms of technology savviness, the type of computer they use, their bandwidth, you know, all that stuff, I have no control. So I want to go back to the basics and make it as simple and easy as possible for the participants. Andrew, I saw your head shaking earlier on, and do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's so true what you're saying. I mean, the basics, especially in this digital world and with such a variety of people, we tend to fall in love with technology, but then you lose the whole objective.
Yes. So I always go back to, why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
Always go back to the purpose, always go back to the desired outcome. If the desired outcome is for people to talk, then let them talk. Don't use other fancy stuff to dilute the process, right? So I see people are dropping off because it's late at night in India and so on. So thank you for being here. And I will stick around a little bit. If people still have questions, I'm happy to chat. Okay?
That was great, Rosanna. It was really encouraging, especially for someone who's so afraid from getting the artist outside.
Yeah, yeah. So don't be afraid. Just keep doing it and keep trying. It does not have to be perfect. What you see on social media are either people that do this all the time as their service, their primary service, or that they pick the best stuff to post on social media, right? They're not going to pick the ugly stuff to post on social media. So don't be intimidated by that. If you see some of my work, you would go, that's not really very pretty. Well, that's because the process is messy. The conversation was messy. So I use visual tools to help my work as a facilitator, not as the final product. Anastasia, you had your hands up.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rosanna. Amazing. Here's the question from the beginner facilitator like myself. Would you recommend to use graphic facilitation and include it, which would increase the budget for the client as many times as possible? Okay, sorry, I will rephrase my question. Do you find having graphic facilitation being more productive and more efficient for the group when you have it on the session rather than without it?
Yes. So my personal challenge here in my world is that client doesn't usually have the budget to hire extra people. It would be lovely if I could have a graphic recorder with me every single time. That would be perfect. But my client doesn't always have the budget to pay for extra people. So you kind of have to balance what their primary needs are. Is their primary need a drawing that summarizes the session, or is it the conversation that needs to happen amongst the participants? Mm-hmm. Again, going back to purpose, right? What is the purpose of that session?
True, true. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rosanna, I need to leave, so I will say goodbye and thank you.
You're very welcome.
Soon.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Thanks, Rosanna. Even I
You're
have
very welcome.
All the best.
Thank you, thank you. Like I said, we'll stop the recording. I'll hang around for further conversation.